Ian Mullane, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And where are you calling in from today?
I am in I would say the middle of the night, the late evening in
Late
the
evening.
very northern part of the United Kingdom called Lancashire. So I am safely ensconced on my own little isolated farm for the time being. And
Very
yes.
nice. So for our American listeners, which there are quite a lot, would tell us exactly where Lancashire is in relation to the United Kingdom.
I guess probably the most famous city that Lancashire is going to have is Liverpool,
Hmm.
and so that is probably about 17 miles to the south of where I am currently on this side of things. So yeah, we're in the northwest of England.
The Northwest. Okay. And so, what I'm really excited to talk to you about is that you have been making some waves in the fitness industry recently with a white paper that you have authored. Maybe you could just give a little update on kind of what you're doing right now and also where the genesis of that white paper came from.
Sure. Okay. Well, my background isn't mainstream fitness as such, though I was an owner operator of a business called Fit for just over 12 years in Singapore, which I sold in 2019. It was during that ownership, whilst I wasn't heavily involved in the day-to-day, that my other experience, which is predictive analytics and financial engineering and a whole base of math orientated stuff, made me curious into what was the possibility of being able to predict retention issues before they actually occurred. And long story short, it's over the last few years, it's developed into a business called Keepme.ai with customers in 10 countries in the world. COVID comes in March last year. And I'm an avid reader. I'm an economist from an academic background, which means I'm always looking for consequences of things changing. I've got a strong customer base of a large variety of organizations, whether it be the likes of Virgin Active down to individual studios, and their business stopped overnight. And the implications of that were obvious. Now, we ourselves doubled down onto a whole host of different initiatives to use it, but I found myself contradicting a lot of what was being said in the media and the conversations around how the industry was going to fare. And I started to see the rapid acceleration of digitization far beyond the pace we could ever imagine to see. And come to November, when the UK announced its lockdown number 2, I'm losing track,
Which is still going.
which is still going, right?
Still in full
Coming
force.
to the end, but still going. I started jotting down what I intended to be a blog post. I'd started to grab some things, and it just went on, and it just went on and on. And 12,000 words and 30 pages later, a blog post becomes a white paper. And what I was trying to do in the most simple form was to provoke conversation. A lot of it is my opinion, and a lot of it is my observations and my discussions with other people. But what is apparent and just cannot under any circumstance be ignored is the fact that we're not returning to the way it was, and that the digital landscape is starting to dominate, if not revolutionize, our business. Now, I personally think for the better, and I think that even for bricks and mortar and traditional operators, it's going to be better for them than it was. But that is the reality. And what I wanted to do was to provoke conversation. I didn't know what type of response was going to. I certainly didn't anticipate whatever it's been 1,000 downloads from 30 odd countries, and the type of response we've got. But what it has actually done is start to get me engaged with a lot of very intelligent people, a lot more intelligent than my good self, and also with people a lot more experienced. And it's helping me to start to shape a better understanding of what the landscape is going to look like for our industry over the next 2 to 5 years.
Totally. And I'm really interested to have your perspective on the show because we're obviously group fitness orientated, and we talk to instructors and people that are in the instructor space. But you're going to bring a different perspective on this, because obviously, as an operator and someone that works closely with operators, will have an understanding of what it means for the group fitness studio and where you think that's going. But you're probably going to have a slightly different opinion on how instructors can best place themselves to take advantage of these challenges and changes that are coming. So on that note, why don't you do you want to summarize sort of the biggest key takeaways of the white paper? We will link to it so that anyone that wants to download it and read it in full can read it. But maybe we could just kind of skim over some of the big headline points and then deep dive into how you think they're going to impact instructors in their day-to-day lives, both in their own careers and in their careers at gyms and outside of gyms.
Okay, well, I think that the overarching point, which I've tried to make, is that the fitness operators no longer own the wellness journey of consumers. We've been the temples of fitness for decades, and it's a very strong position to have in the psyche of the consumer. But our consumers are changing very rapidly. They're what they define as wellness or fitness or whatever now is very, very different. It's more likely to take in aspects such as sleep, nutrition, hydration, and mindfulness, and those type of aspects. So it's more holistic. And whilst that may have been a fringe predominantly of the industry participants historically, that's not now. And even the education and the content around those subjects is as mainstream as you've only got to pick up a Men's Health or any of the other commercial health fitness magazines, and you'll find that the fitness aspect, the actual physical exertion aspect, has somewhat reduced to encompass the wider aspects of it. So it's not unusual to have consumers now with a much better understanding. Now, we add to that we are all now carrying around with us the physiological measurement devices in the shape of our wearables and our phones that, the vast majority of professional sports scientists wouldn't have had access to 5 years ago, right? And if we let's deep dive in a bit into how that can actually be utilized in a club. But what that means is that I, as a consumer, am more aware of my physical state at any particular time than I ever have had before. But I'm also more aware that attending the gym 3 times a week isn't going to move the needle to the level that I need to do. And I'm also going to become aware of how important rest is and how important recovery is, right? And how variation is and hydration is and nutrition. And there's all of these different aspects which I think come into play. What that means is that operators, whether they be studios or traditional operators, need to find their place in that ecosystem. And that ecosystem itself has changed quite dramatically with the introduction of the digital players, the digital only players, or the digital providers.
Yep.
And I think the reason that's changed is for a number of aspects. First and foremost, digital players are providing a level of personalization which isn't necessarily given in a bricks and mortar environment. As an example, let's look at Fitness Plus, probably one of the more premier offerings in that aspect at the moment. Just the integration of the Apple Watch is providing a level of personalization at stage 1, and Apple certainly are not stopping there.
No,
right? We're any stretch, right? At stage 1, which is in excess than the vast majority of my in-house bricks and mortar type exercise situations on that side of things. So I think that there's that element to it. I think the other aspect is that whereby in traditional operators, our defensive reaction to this, our knee-jerk reaction has either been to replicate, or our knee-jerk reaction has been to suggest it's a fad, it's a trend. I'm still finding it amusing that the market the actual market Nasdaq's gone down quite heavily very recently in the last week or so, and that's a whole different ball game, which I could get you on bond yields and all the rest of it. However, the only thing that anyone wants to focus on in the fitness community is, Peloton told you those exercise bikes weren't going to last long. Not a chance, right? It's just an exercise bike. We've had them. Totally ignoring the 1.3 million subscribers, totally ignoring the 93% retention rate. totally ignoring the sheer quantity of time that is dedicated to those particular bikes on those ones. These drivers, these changes mean that as a proposition, we need to capitalize on what we're strong at in bricks and mortar traditional operators, but we need to modify that approach as well. We need to find a way to add personalization. We need to find a way to make our members and our customers feel as if there's a more personalized approach. Because why would I attend a spin class, even if it's the best person in Lancashire, London, or wherever else it may be, when I have got the capacity to choose my music, my timing, my cadence, my output? I've got the ability to measure it, right? And I've got the ability to get automatic feedback from, and I hate to say this, but we have to face some reality in some cases, from the best instructors on the planet, right? They're rock stars in many, many cases. And with that being the case, we have to look at how we are going to respond to that. Because let me make it absolutely clear, bricks and mortar operators, studios, Group X organizations, absolutely critical to the ongoing welfare and strength of countries and communities, right? We cannot rely on a single threaded product. So it would be a travesty to see a huge deterioration in the capacity for these type of organizations.
So on that, do you see the level of personalization and potentially complication that now exists in getting into a product as being a barrier to certain sectors that need fitness? Because when I hear you talking, I think that is super great for people who are already engaged in fitness and understand their measurements and understand their metrics and want to know about sleep. And then I think about sort of the area that I tend to encourage instructors to hit, which is never done exercise before. They want a very simple entry level. Do you see these metrics as being the thing that's going to bridge that gulf and bring many more new people in? Or do you see that as being something that experienced exercisers continue to use, and there still being a kind of low key, let's do a walking group entry level that is not tracked, that there's no personalized metrics, that still exists as kind of a cohort to go after?
A good question. I think there's probably two answers to that one. First and foremost, I think that the rise of digitizing, for too many years now, every year we read these reports about the steady increase in penetration that we have in our communities, where we seem to be able to miraculously grow the size of the fitness market every year, despite the fact that in mature countries, and particularly in the likes of New Zealand and Australia and the United States and UK, we're in aging populations. Yep. So unless I'm walking down the street and missing all these 55 plus gyms, I'm not sure how our market is growing on an annual basis, right? So that's the first aspect, right? Therefore, those numbers, to all intents and purposes, are probably bloody useless. However, what I would say was, we have now got some of the smartest commercial marketing organizations on the planet, whether it be Apple, whether it be Peloton, whether it be Google, whether it be Mirror and Tonal and Lululemon, all of these type of guys who are now targeting our sector. They are likely to open up cohorts that we just haven't had the capacity to get to. Yep. They are likely to introduce fitness to a whole new generation of users and across the age spectrum, right? I mean, have you seen the roster on the Fitness Plus app, right? We're not all sitting there
with Molly Fox. I love it. It's great. Finally seeing some experienced like industry veterans fronting a big digital format.
Yeah, exactly, right. And and that is going to introduce people through it. Now, and I'm well aware of currently where the digital aspect has driven people 55, 60, 65 to start taking up, whereby they previously did attend, for instance, Group X at their local community center or the local fitness aspects or their gym. They were going once a week where it was specific to their age group or even their gender, particularly as you get older. And now on demand and in the capacity to take that. So I think the first thing we've got to do is we need to understand that the players we've talked about there did not enter our market to take a share of our 90 billion, 94 billion, whatever number they decided to make up this year as being our market size, right? They are there because they have got a full belief that they are going to take this market at 400, 500, 600. Let us remember that Apple's revenues are 3 times the apparent global market of fitness currently.
Wow.
Right?
I have actually heard that before, but like I hadn't thought about it for a while. That's true, right? So there's like, yeah, it's a good point. There's just no way that a company that makes more than our entire industry is entering our industry to capture that market, right? They're only doing it if they think they can increase the penetration way wider. From a move into health, right? Like fitness becoming one plank of a person's health and therefore life journey.
Yeah, and that's it. So, you know, I think with that, and it is very, very clear. I think there's been quite a few articles written recently where Tim Cook's made it abundantly clear. Health is one of the major columns that they are going to go after. In fact, I don't remember his exact quote.
Well, I think he said that's the lasting impact that Apple will have on the world is on
correct.
health. Right? So like, I'm paraphrasing.
Me there. You're better than I am, right? There's your legal training, bringing your recollection back better than mine, right? But you know that's the reality, right? So they're going, and then they're not going after fitness. Fitness is, as you just utilized there, that's a plank of wellness, and they're going after a much larger part, which is going to. I think what we're going to see is that Google is going to work at the health level down, the hospital aspect down. I think Amazon's going to come at it from the retail delivery aspect of it, particularly around medicines and pharmacies. And Apple is going to own.
Really? So you see Amazon coming in with a play for like on-demand supplements and on-demand like pharmaceuticals.
That's their part. Yeah,
that would be very American of them.
It would be, but you can see, where Apple's strength is obviously having built a platform of, you know, over 1 billion customers, 1.3 billion devices, right? And that's where they go. Amazon's about distribution, right? They've got that capacity on there, and it's Google, it's products. It is. It's very much about that, right? So they'll use that for distribution. So first and foremost, I think what we're saying there is the market's not going to stay the same. It's going to grow, right? So therefore, there's an opportunity, right? And what I believe will happen is that this new cohort will engage with the digital, and that will probably build up the confidence that you were suggesting, you know, where you're going after first timers, right? I think that when a digital product is strong, when it engages and when it integrates maybe the wearables, there's a stronger probability that they're going to supplement that by actually going for in-person. I think when I take an operator's perspective, I see that individuals will build that confidence. I use another example, but I'm doing rudimentary functional training, strength and conditioning, whatever. I you know, the confidence of going to CrossFit. No, that's, you know, I may look at the YouTube videos twice and, you know, I'm not going there until I'm a lot, you know, in a different thing. Or, you know, I can see that I should be doing, you know, deadlifts and the rest of it, but I don't have the capacity for that equipment. I am going to end up driven eventually to seek expertise and to seek in person. If I use Group X as an example, I personally have always struggled to go to Group X, and that's a confidence thing, right? I am a Peloton customer, and I could go to any spin class in the world now, and I would walk in there with the confidence that was necessary. That came from Peloton, right? That came from, and it was through no more than I knew I could sit on the bike, I knew I could move those pedals but I had no idea what form. I had no idea what a class shape would be on how it do. I had no idea whether I'd be able to keep up and those type of aspects. That awareness now has given me and would give me the confidence to participate.
Right. That level of comfort that you have built in the safety of your own home with no one judging you and no kind of no knowledge gap that you're walking into, and also no confidence gap, means that you've been able to get to a level of expertise that makes you feel comfortable going into a live class.
Absolutely, and that is starting to. Oh, you're getting all my secrets here today. Yoga is another one. Okay, so I am well aware of the benefits of yoga. I've had it preached to me by my wife for long enough, and by others. Yoga is very clearly something which, when you get past 50, which believe it or not, I am now. There, when you get past 50, that element is very, very important. I would never have gone to a yoga class. I am more than comfortable to go to a yoga class anywhere else in the world now. Again, I was introduced to it in digital. And do you know the funny thing is despite the fact that I have digital biases, when it comes to yoga, I actually do want to have the personal relationship with my teacher, and therefore I will definitely supplement both. Right, I will progress from there on that aspect and allow to do it. You mentioned about the wearables and the digital aspect of it. I think that I think currently there are. It's not a fringe. It's not the quantified self groups that go around and measure everything about their aspect of it. The tools which are coming out now, whether it be a Whoop or Garmin's or whatever else, right? They are taking what are complex physiological measurements and they're making them very understandable for everyone. So, as a basic example, I have Whoop, and I've had Whoop for a number of years. And when I wake up in the morning, Whoop gives me a traffic light system onto what degree I should be pushing, right? Done that. And it uses HRV and a few other variables. But the bottom line is, I know whether, regardless of how I feel in here, which seems to vary an awful lot more than what my body's actually capable of doing, is that it's and I guess here is probably looking at the weather, whereby here is actually a real measurement. Is if I do that, then I've got the capacity and the confidence to push myself far in excess of what I would normally do. So my point is, I see some changes in the Group X environment, and I see that it is likely to be driven by some of the fitness plus aspects of it, whereby we will start to see a necessity for Group X to integrate this type of data. Now, do you and I seriously believe that we are going to see less people wearing wearables over the next 2 to 3 years, or more wearing wearables?
You know what? I actually, when I asked that question and then was listening to your answer, I realized that I was wrong. And I can talk about my own personal experience. I bought my dad another Fitbit at Christmas because it was a simple piece of tech that he could understand. My dad's 65. He's a type 2 diabetic. He is not mobile enough. And I basically said, right, you're going to do 10,000 steps per day. And I'm going to call you and check in on you and make sure you're actually doing it. And I guess that when I think of Whoop and the sleep recording and measure and all the other things that you can measure with more sophisticated things, I think that maybe sometimes we forget that a simple pedometer is still an element of wearable technology that is really, really able to integrate. And it's something that he's now doing. He challenges himself to 10,000 steps every day. I think he's getting up to 11 or 12,000 since Christmas, which is fantastic. Great for his health, great for his mobility. And I can see him leveraging that into getting back into a fitness experience that would have been unattainable when he was sedentary and doing 3,000 steps a day.
I mean, what gets measured gets managed. What gets managed gets measured. Whichever way you look around it, I find that, and again, I do admit I'm probably at the different end of it because I am interested in this. But what I am always very eager to do is to introduce people to just the basic understanding of stuff that will get them engaged, because I think that the steps, Apple did not spend all of that money to develop a watch, which is a highly accurate step one. We could have paid $3 on for whatever. However, the steps was the gateway to metrics. Before they put ECGs and blood oxidization and all of the rest of that stuff on there, right?
Which would have scared people off in a second. But closing your rings, that's nice and simple. It's intellectualizable, and
that's it. And there's a reason why I'm standing in front of you now rather than sitting down when I do. Those type of things, they work it up. And I want to get to my numbers by the end of the day, and I will work it along those lines. However, what Apple is also doing, as is Whoop, as is Google, as is Samsung, and the rest of them, is they are putting the devices on your hand and they are measuring certain aspects, ones like the heart rate, the sleep, etc., which we're getting into. But recording these massive data sets, which are
Right.
then going into your Apple Health and your Apple Fit, so that when they do introduce something new, like a metric like Whoop's recovery score,
They
right?
can
It's a
integrate it with
case
all
of
the
them
data
being
they
able
already
to
have.
just, you've got it, and it's
Yeah.
there, and that is the, you know, that aspect. Now, you know, Apple has saved many people through, you know, on the heart attack side of things, right?
Yeah.
And it is not because the ECG capability in the watch has been able to measure the heart. It's because it's got this massive data set which it's been able to teach and then learn that when Ian is generating certain data, look at the probability is, and
Yeah.
therefore make it on the highlights, right?
Yeah. Very,
Now,
very
from a,
interesting.
well, you know, the other one is that I look at the wearables and cost, you know, that, yeah, cost, you know, 500 US or whatever for an Apple Watch 6 is certainly up at the higher end of aspect. I watched it, the Consumer Electronics Show, which you never thought you'd have the day where operators and fitness professionals would be looking to the Vegas CES to
Yeah.
see what was coming out in the business,
Which used
right?
to
They
be
were more,
like butler robots and such.
yeah, it was exactly. You know, it was good. Nowadays, it's just not that way. And CES this year, they're out of China. They've got this one called the Honor Band 6, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the Honor Band 6 is an OLED wearable. It's, you know, beautiful display, does your steps, your heart rate, your sleep, your blood oxidation, all of those type of things. $34.
Wow, really?
$34, right? Right,
Yeah.
that is the level, and you know, you can match the quality of the components
The
and against
price
the
of a
Apple Watch.
resistance band, and a good
Correct.
quality resistance band.
Right? How long before we've seen another? How long before that is part of your joining package?
Mm,
You're going to thing, right? It's $34, right? Let's, you know, give them a month free, or give them the band, right?
yeah.
And bring the band in to their things. So if I can change the pace a little bit here and then just take it into where I think some of this stuff in group fitness would
Yeah.
be really relevant, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because I guess and really keen to hear your views on this, because I will speak for our listeners and say that they are often intimidated by technology, and they've a lot of them have gotten over that step, because obviously the big intimidation was around going digital. A lot of people that had taught in gyms, some of them that had never taught for themselves, gyms were closed. They were having to teach on their own account, for one thing, so having to deal with all the sales and marketing stuff that they never really dealt with. And then secondly, digitizing the experience. So getting across Zoom or whatever platform they were using, cameras, microphones, and they've kind of covered that. And I think that everyone's now getting to a point where they're breathing a minor sigh of relief that no more change is coming. And so when we talk about wearables and integrating that kind of health data into the provision that they're giving their clients, I can see a lot of people going, "Oh, please no, like not another thing." I've heard you speak on this before, and so I know you have some really great tips. But maybe you could talk a little bit about how a group fitness instructor who's maybe working in a gym where a wearable is already endorsed, it might be a MyZone, or some of the users might have an Apple Watch, but also the instructors who teach for themselves and are wanting to get ahead of this change that's coming and start to incorporate data more into what they're providing to their classes, but they don't have the ability to mandate a particular item or to necessarily put it in a membership package because they can't charge that much. Like, what are the strategies that you would employ for bringing data into your delivery as a fitness instructor?
Well, I think the first thing I'd do would be to use the same approach that you had with your father, which
Mm-hmm.
was to keep it simple, right?
Yep.
So, you know, you there are some clubs who no doubt will do wearable instruction days and a whole host of other things, but I think what you want to first of all is signal to your customers, signal to your audience that you are aware that they have probably put an investment into some of this. You are aware that they may well be tracking metrics and they may have an interest in this aspect of it.
And
And the
anyone with a
weights,
smartphone can track steps, right? Like at the very
yeah,
minimum,
anyone
that, like,
can
you don't
do,
even
and
need
yeah,
a wearable. You can just have a phone.
yes, exactly, right. So they can do that as well, and anyone with a telephone can even use it for even more sophisticated stuff as well. But I think if I was a group instructor at the moment, what I would be doing would be would be making it clear that I had an understanding or an appreciation for this stuff. It's not, you know, if we're into fitness, if we're into this aspect of it, we're not going to find it pedestrian. There's plenty of articles to understand, you know, to what degree is thing, and just becoming aware of the basic differences. In fact, it's probably a blog post that I need to write, which is, you know, what is the difference between an Apple Watch, a Whoop, a Fitbit, etc.
You know what? I feel like that would be a fantastic piece of content. You can send it to me. I will send it out to all my instructors immediately.
No, I just
There
think
you go.
it
I'm
could
giving
be
you
a
some
useful
homework for
one
after the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'll time it. It's been there. It's on the list, and I do keep thinking about it because I do get asked it. But you know, if I was fronting up a class, you know, and I'm starting a class, I'm going to look to see what's on the wrists.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make an estimate, depending on where your demographics are, that 60 to 70% of them are not wearing traditional watches, right? They will be wearing of some aspect of it on that. And in many cases, a watch plus a Fitbit maybe on the other. Yep. So therefore, understanding what they're capable of doing on that side, I think is the first one. So that when you are representing, whether you are doing it via digital, whether you're doing it via a newsletter or any communications, you're signaling that you've got an awareness of it, right? You yourself on that side. I think that's the first one. I think what we're going to see is that as the adoption gets larger, we're going to have a necessity to probably grade our classes relative to some of these metrics in a simple traffic light. And let me explain why I think that is going to be sooner rather than later. And that predominantly is because that level of customization is ready at Peloton. It is ready at Fitness Plus. Okay. They are integrating those metrics, and they're already at a stage where, you know, I've got 200 workouts, 10 minutes up to 30 minutes with different aspects. Imagine being a Group X instructor and having an understanding of every single person that was in that room, knowing to what level you could take it to, knowing where you'd be pushing it too far, knowing whether you were getting people that were at their thresholds, right? And how long they could take it, right? That type of information is completely available to the 21 current Fitness Plus instructors at Apple. They know exactly to what level, right? And that data is being pulled back in consistently to reshape the next classes. Look at, they've got 2 full-time DJs in there now, right? And their job is
so, you know, I hadn't thought about this, but I was reading an article on how they go about creating Apple Fitness Plus, and I wasn't thinking about that feedback loop, but I guess you're right, because like in the group fitness sphere, and I've been involved in Beachbody Live, Les Mills, obviously Shift, my own brand, content creation, and we often trial with heart rate monitors, but it's with a select few. But I guess they can create a class, and if that class is too easy, they see that everyone's in the green zone, or conversely, if that class was too hard and only 2% of the people taking the class managed to redline, then they were probably, or, you know, like maybe bad examples, but right, they can actually see.
Good example.
How has my class actually been effective on the measurements that I know create change in my clients?
And even better, what influence has the choice of music had? I'm going to do that class 3 times, right? And I can map physiologically to the responses of the people in my class to that, right? Now, so that there's that aspect. Even more so, what impact is the instructor having? Right, when his encouragement, right, final 10 seconds of a hit, right, and he throws it out in that aspect, you know, when those verbal skills, what impact are they having, right? When you can see, right, when you can see what the output, the cadence, the heart rate, all of these things have gone up on the basis of what you said. Later on, right, you can, I mean, again, I know I don't want to be scaring Group X instructors, but
you're definitely scaring people right now, but it's okay.
You could overlay over the top of the actual class this, so that when Will said X, everyone's cadence went up 5%, right?
Yeah.
But compared it to the last time when we were using the different track, which had a 5 beats per minute difference in it, and that's it. Now, the reason why we need to be aware that goes on is because people are going to look for that same thing. So at the moment, I look at my Group X schedule, which is in a non-digital format, And I don't want to play off anything. You're going to get an X's body pump or whatever else it's going to be, right? You have no idea who's going to be in that class. You have no idea what your capable output is going to be. And I know from people who do Group X, where some of them will go, especially when we're out traveling. I've got a few of my colleagues who love to just go to a studio. And then literally, it doesn't matter who the instructor is or who else is in the room, because it is so out of sync with what their capabilities are that they just have to go off and do their own thing in there in the studio just to get themselves to that level. Right? So, and I think, so
those people in the class.
I know, I know, but and then we
Jane in the corner who's doing the high kicks when we're doing the knees.
Yeah, exactly. But I think in many ways, what that is an indicator is that there are people looking for something else that we're not providing. We're providing to the majority. In many cases in Group X, one of the challenges we have is that we have to actually measure ourselves to the lowest common denominator within a thing to make sure that we keep it up at the averageness, right, on that particular aspect of it. So the feedback loop is incredibly important. Now, I don't think, logically, that Group X instructors are not suddenly going to be able to get themselves available to this data. Do I think they will? Yeah, very much so, right? I will make a prediction, and I seem to want to commit suicide in these predictions on a regular basis at the moment. I will say that within 18 months, there will be commercial tools available that will be delivered software as a service, so that, if I'm a Group X instructor and I want to bring these tools in, that it'll be a case of people will, when they schedule themselves on the class, they will give the permission on there, right? And their data will sync within the class. It will be captured, right? And I later on will have these feedback loops, which allows me then to start getting involved in the personal communication.
So you're foreseeing like platform providers, for example, like we're talking on Zoom right now. So you're seeing like the potential for a Zoom for Fitness that integrates with 3 different wearables that allows the data from those wearables to be tracked for the class.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing providers that are concentrating on being a consolidator for wearables to produce a pipe, which can then be set to on-demand fitness aspects of it, right? So yeah, I see that as being one. Now, I even see it going one stage further, and humor me here, but this is something which I think is relevant. Now, you're going to bring VR and AR in the audience.
We hadn't talked about AI yet, which I know
AR has got a part to play in this, and I'll explain why. So I visualize, and again, I'll make the call. What are we on? I make the call by the end of 2022 that a Group X instructor will be wearing Oakleys or something along those lines, which will be a screen. And what they will see in front of them is obviously their class when they've got the full visibility on there, but they will also have an overlay on there, which will be giving them information that's going to allow them to personalize. So they're going to be able to see what the average is, what the average bands are. They'll look at me and they'll be able to see what zone I'm in. They'll also see I've got a little birthday cake over my head, right? And my name, so that you can give a shout out there and then. It's happy birthday to Ian who's pushing it, etc., etc. Other data can be supplemented on. It's my 5th class this week. Congratulations to Ian on these things.
Which is what Peloton already do, right? Like I've taught in studios in London where I have performance. So like we're just bringing together data that already exists. So when the person checks in, there might be a birthday note and so on. This is we're going back 5 years as well. So this is well before the advent of anything else. On your check-in sheet, that you would have a star saying this person's new, another star saying it's this person's birthday, so that in your welcome you could shout it out. And then on my screen, I can flick between controlling the lights and controlling the music to seeing what everyone's output was, because all the bikes were connected. So this is all stuff that exists already and many instructors use, predominantly in boutiques, but in some gyms as well. And you're just saying that it's just going to become integrated with wearables. It's going to be Bluetoothed across to a device that the instructor has. Was that heads-up display?
Yeah, it would be. It'd be like a heads-up display. It's not going to be like the Google Glass things, right? I mean, it would seem the industry predictions would be that Apple Glass is going to be out probably but by the end of this year or early next year. And that's going to be Warby Parker, normal type of glasses where you can either choose to have straight glass, but interchangeable sunglasses, whatever else it may be. What's important is, and again, it's more on the tech side, but it's the reason why it can get delivered. and can be delivered in a format which is instantaneous and can be highly personalized. So literally when I walk up to you at the end of the session to congratulate you, I can actually see a lot of the stuff coming through. How long you've been with us as a member, right? How many workouts you've had, how many classes you've done with me, what's your average output being, whether that average output is increasing or decreasing over that period, right? Any other data that's coming in. The reason I can
all I
do
can
that,
say is I hope they come up with some great sweat wicking technology for these frames,
well,
because as someone who goes running in sunglasses, I struggle.
and I'm with you, and that's why I am not a supporter of VR. I don't see how VR works. I own a number of VR headsets.
Right, by VR you mean like the full Oculus headset?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, people talk now, phenomenal experience. It's great, but I don't see VR working in that. There are already VR products out there, but quite frankly, the minute you get animated in a VR headset, it's dripping down you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's not like you've got the ability to wipe it off or whatever. But we've got 5G is being rolled out around the world at the moment, and what 5G is doing is it's going to take away the need for wearables to have the ability to do the computation, right?
Right.
And the reason behind that is 5G is 100 times the speed of 4G, right?
Yeah.
It's latency, i.e. the time of processing is faster than the human eye. So I'm wearing these glasses and it's got a 5G SIM within them, right? So tiny little thing on that aspect of it. That means that what I can be doing is going away into the cloud and being processed and sent back to me. So it's absolutely speed. So you can see that if I look at it from an operator's perspective. No, let's look at it from a consumer's perspective. I walk in and I have a pair of my Apple glasses on, right, which is a thing. And it can tell me just by looking at the Group X rooms, which one is likely to be the best suited to my current state, not my desire, my current state.
Right. Not what your brain thinks, but what your body is actually needing.
Exactly. Right. Well, there's also that as well. But I'm gonna give myself the benefit of the doubt that I have walked in, and unless this club has a sauna and a steam room, my options are relatively limited for the lazy method, right?
Yep.
So it's going to be on that aspect. And where we are going to be at is, let's say, for instance, there's a class, 2 or 3 classes going on, and I go into one, having the capacity to know that I should possibly be stopping or moving to recovery earlier, right, is something that is only going to increase, because the more and more data that's captured on us individuals allows for more and more personalization. And I think
this is the Blade Runner scenario where the advertisement served to you is selected for you rather than put up on the billboard. Actually, you know what?
Correct.
I watched Brave New World. It was a Sky series. Did you watch it? Where they all had a little ocular implant, and it would basically give them a full readout on who the person was, where they should be. This is very, very, very Aldous Huxley future we're talking about.
Well, we are going down that route, but you know that already coming out of Google Labs, they have the contact lenses,
contact
which
lens,
have got that processor capacity within there, and a whole host of other things. So as HUD, and you know, the full expectation is that the militaries will go there first. But
yeah,
you know, all of this sounds well, no, not futuristic, because I think you know, the industry and instructors, Group X professionals have had to adapt themselves over the last 12 months to so much technological change. My call to action here is, even if you don't get an interest in it, don't get caught out. Right? Yeah. You know, it's commercial fitness, it's commercial metrics. It's not going to get, you're not going to have to sit there listening to reading white papers from you know, PhDs and physiosciences, right? This is going to be, keep your eye on the developments coming out of the big commercial players. When Apple announces the Watch 7, which is going to in September, the vast majority of the stuff they're going to do there is going to be wellness, fitness, and health. That's what they're going to do. It's going to be
the watch is a health tool, right? Like ultimately, it was getting something onto your wrist, and this was always their play. It was never about answering messages on your wrist.
Yeah, no, and then they've got, no, it never was, and it never was. The you know, again, just giving you the blood glucose, and a major indicator of overall health, and not just with your father's predicament, something that my father shares too, right? But keeping blood glucose in a thing. Now, for the weirdos amongst us who have continuous blood glucose monitors plumbed into their arm, I'm one
Yep.
of them. Even up there,
My sister
so
has one of them.
yeah, and you know, now I'm not a diabetic. I have it because for me, it's a large part of how I manage my side of things. The next watch, or the one after that, they have already managed to get where there's no insertion. They're
Right, it's just a
using
sensor-based
sensor
technology.
so you can imagine from now on, right? And this is for a very large proportion of the world who do have type 2 diabetes. Having the capacity to understand not only your steps, but the effect it's having live on your blood glucose levels. Imagine your father, right, being indicated that his blood glucose is going down, 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 down. You're doing phenomenally well. It will motivate him even further, right? And it's not, when you're only dealing with a number, right? You say to your dad, keep it between 4 and 6, dad, and everything's great. Then it is fine, right? So increase your activity. So for practitioners, let's not pretend that this isn't happening.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend that it's not our role to understand that it is. Let's be keeping our eyes on the commercial development of platforms so that the Zooms for fitness are going to start to integrate in this. Understand how you can play a part in it. Understand on how you need to understand it. You don't need to start building out physiological degrees or anything else along those lines. Just make sure that you are aware, and start by taking a look at the people that are attending and understanding what devices they've got.
Right.
I'd
you do an audit, right? If you're a group fitness instructor, there's no reason that straight after hearing this podcast, you have a Facebook group where all your members are, just go, hey guys, I'm interested in your approach to wearables and wearable tech. Like, what of these do you have? And start with phone, Garmin, Fitbit, Apple Watch, and just take stock right now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And what do you use it for? Yeah. What do you use it for? And, you know, how could I help you use it more, right? Would you be interested in, you know? And, you know, one of the brands, which I think we've seen do very well, I mean, for a long time, but increasingly so the last 12 months, has been MyZone, where they, you know, that is a commercial platform, even though it's got a consumer element to it as well for those aspects of it. That we've seen a wide adoption of that, where we, I within my community, my exercise community, will share data, whether it be in Strava or wherever else, relative to my performance. So it'd be humble bragging or whatever else you want to call it. Right? There's the reality, right? I can assure you that there is a larger amount of the population now that are making their choices that if they cannot capture the data to be able to show their community. So one of the big challenges when you're utilizing the Garmin and Whoop as well was the capacity to be able to demonstrate indoor cycling.
Yeah.
And with Peloton's rise, this was a huge challenge. And one of the reasons why it was a challenge is because if I wasn't, everyone was like, you okay? You've not exercised for last year? Yes, I have. I've been on my Peloton, right? You know, it's, you know, and those aspects. So if we are a provider of one of, you know, people's physical fitness, and we don't have the capacity to allow them to signal to their own external communities what they can do within their own digital, that's likely to have an impact. And I, as an instructor, you know, it's not that bricks and mortar will fall away, it's that they will move and gravitate towards bricks and mortar, where people, I don't want to use the word hybrid or any of those ones, but where they are moving towards people where they can keep both their on and their offline experiences consistent and constant, and measure as well.
And I'm sure that instructors listening to this will have certain people in their class who have posted their MyZone graph or have you know, shown their results from their watch, and it might be something that is just, you know, unique to them. But as this adoption becomes more widespread, that'll be something that more people can share in. And it actually, we talk to individual instructors, a lot of them are sort of going out on their own and looking to how they can build their own practices, their own communities. And this is a great way to build community, right? Because you get people interacting and caring, and it's not coming from you. They're interacting with each other and comparing their own scores. And this could be a boon for just, you know, having a competition with who can do the most steps this week outside of class, sort of thing. Like, you can use these as all threads to just build more community with your users.
Yeah, I'm like my zone's done with the MEPS, right? And
Exactly.
it's been a great one. Whoop does his recovery score, and even having community targets for the points kind of thing, or having, as I said before, identifying your classes by output as well, right? Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have all heard of classes which have named, their weekend insanity and all of this type of stuff, where it's obviously at the high intensity aspect of it, but with people being more aware of what they're capable of, what their body is signifying to them, giving people the option to be able to participate in your class with a required output is likely to be better. So, I'm not just relying on the descriptive, I'm relying on maybe a traffic light that correlates, that says that if I'm amber today on my Whoop or on my Apple Watch or whatever, then with the amber classes which I'm holding today are at 8:30, 10:30, and at 12:30, and I've got one insanity going on at 4:30, and I've got a recovery class going on. That type of programming, that type of signaling is going to be there. And we're already seeing it from your Les Mills and these guys. They are massively upping their technical aspects of the game, right? They're having to even to survive. And I think there's a huge opportunity for the smaller practitioner to just bring some of this in place. And they will
dip your toe in the water so that you're not left high and dry.
Yeah, well, also retention, right? When I measure, when I have that, when that community becomes about my instructor understanding in the state I'm in, or what my outcomes are, and we're moving towards it, that changes the relationship from a trainer to a coach in many ways. Right?
We've talked about this actually, a concierge of health and fitness experience, rather than just a person that delivers one class. You're helping them on their journey that may include digital, that may include a walk, it may include a run, it may include sleep factors.
Yes, that's going to say, mate. I use the example in the paper, but when we're working with a trainer becomes a coach when I turn up, and and normally the idea is I'm there for 45 minutes, and they need to make sure I don't get bored, and the output needs to be high, right? But I turn up in so many different conditions, whether it be after business traveling, I've got jet lag.
Your results are based on the other 23 hours, 15 in the day, right?
Yeah. And then imagine if they turn up and then the first thing they say to us is, well, because show me your phone here.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Listen, we're going to concentrate on recovery and form today. We're not going to go and push it. You've got another class on Friday. What we'll do is I'll move that to Thursday and we'll push it on a PB as long as you go and get some more sleep. But today we're saying that moves that relationship to a coaching relationship. People don't leave coaches as fast as they leave trainers, right? And you could argue it's semantics, but the relationship, is that person has got a personal connection to my outcome, rather than just this unsaid rule that they need to make sure I don't get bored so that I come back the next time and keep handing over the money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can't believe it. We've already been talking for an hour, but I find this stuff so interesting. So I'm not going to keep you any longer. And you've also made a couple of bold predictions that I'm going to hold you to. But I'm going to finish off with asking one more question. And that would be, if there was, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, if there was one surprising development that people might not think is coming that's going to happen by the end of 2021, what would be the number one thing that you would pick? Or just the number one thing that's coming around the corner in the space that we've been talking about?
You know what? I don't think we're going to see anything unexpected. I'm just going to see, I think that what we're going to see is the continued acceleration, whereby a lot of people are starting to think or want to believe that things are going to go back to the way they were. They are going to think, right?
That nostalgia for pre-COVID times.
Well, because the environment saying, I think that we are going to see, so there will be a number of them that will be thinking that the digital providers will go, etc. We're going to see massive consolidation amongst digital platforms and providers. And I'm going to make
stacking between product and platform and content and vertical integration.
Yes. And I think that if I am a Group X instructor currently, I'm going to have a large quantity of choice of different platforms to suit my requirements, which is going to blend both the technical and the metrics and the financial management, right? This was an area which existed. I won't call it a fringe. It wasn't at all. But what we have seen in the democratizing of this whole process, where the instructors are becoming the powerhouses around the products, right? Not the brands. It's not who you work for anymore. It's who you are and what product you do.
Yeah.
And I believe that what we're going to see is that individuals that are strong and capable and are building up followings are going to have the tools evolve with them for them to be able to take advantage of it, because it's a large marketplace and people are going to want to be able to play that.
Exactly. And I think like that's such a great place to finish, right? Like you may feel a little bit intimidated by the amount of sort of data that's about to come and be thrown at you if you're working in the fitness space. But just think back to a year ago and think of when you started doing digital and you had to do Zoom and take payment on PayPal. And now you've got, companies like Moxie on Podio that are platforms that do everything for you. So these platforms are coming. And if you're an instructor, you can just be sure that you will be able to sync up with them when the time comes. You just need to be across where it's going.
Yeah, exactly. That's correct. Absolutely correct.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ian. I'm very keen to see how the next couple of years plays out and whether or not I am wearing a pair of Oakleys with a full heads-up display. I can't wait as an avid sci-fi fanatic. But maybe we'll get you back on in a year's time and see whether these have come true.
Well, thank you very much for having me today, and I hope I get to come back and be proven right or close to it.
Cool.